Dr. Sarah Chen stared at her computer screen, her eyes wide with disbelief. The radio telescope array she managed had picked up something extraordinary. It wasn't the usual cosmic background noise or the rhythmic pulses of a distant pulsar. This signal was different. It was structured, complex, and unmistakably artificial. "Hey, Mike," she called out to her colleague. "Come take a look at this." Dr. Mike Rodriguez hurried over, his coffee mug still in hand. He leaned in, squinting at the display. "What am I looking at, Sarah?" I think we've just received a message from outer space." Mike's coffee mug slipped from his fingers, shattering on the floor. Neither of them noticed. Over the next few hours, the quiet research facility transformed into a hive of activity. More scientists arrived, all crowding around Sarah's workstation. They ran tests, checked and double-checked the equipment, and argued about the signal's origin and meaning. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the New Mexico desert, a somber mood settled over the team. They had decrypted part of the message, and its contents were chilling. "We need to inform the government," Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper. Within 24 hours, the President of the United States stood behind a podium, facing a sea of anxious reporters. The world watched, holding its collective breath. "My fellow Americans, citizens of the world," the President began, her voice steady despite the weight of her words. "Today, we face a moment unprecedented in human history. We have received a message from an advanced alien civilization, one that calls itself the Galactic Empire." Gasps rippled through the crowd. On screens around the world, millions watched in stunned silence. "The message we received is clear and unambiguous. It is an ultimatum. The Galactic Empire demands our immediate surrender and integration into their dominion. If we refuse, they threaten the destruction of our planet." Panic erupted in streets across the globe. In New York, crowds flooded Times Square, their faces a mix of fear and disbelief as they watched the president's address on the giant screens. In Tokyo, salarymen stood frozen on train platforms, their smartphones broadcasting the news. In a small village in Kenya, families huddled around a crackling radio, listening intently. Back in the White House, the president continued her address, her words carried to every corner of the earth. "I want to assure you all that we are not standing idle in the face of this threat. Even as I speak, our best minds are working tirelessly to understand this alien technology and to develop our defenses. We are reaching out to all nations, setting aside old rivalries in the face of this common threat." In orbit, astronauts aboard the International Space Station peered down at the blue marble of Earth, their home now under threat. They exchanged worried glances, wondering what role they might play in the coming days. Deep in the Nevada desert, at the top-secret Area 51 facility, generals and scientists pored over decades of research into alleged alien technology. Projects long dismissed as flights of fancy were now being reevaluated with desperate urgency. In Silicon Valley, tech billionaires called emergency board meetings, redirecting vast resources towards space defense technologies. In university labs across the world, physicists and engineers worked around the clock, pushing the boundaries of human knowledge in search of a solution. As dawn broke over the United Nations headquarters in New York, diplomats from every nation converge. Ancient enemies sat side by side, united by the common threat to their species' survival. And in a small apartment in London, a young woman named Emily Taylor sat on her couch, hugging her knees to her chest as she watched the news unfold. Emily was no scientist or politician. She worked as a librarian and spent her free time reading science fiction novels. Yet, as she absorbed the earth-shattering news, an idea began to form in her mind. An impossible, crazy idea that just might save humanity. Little did Emily know, her unlikely journey from an ordinary librarian to humanity's potential savior was about to begin. As the world around her descended into chaos and preparation for war, Emily Taylor stood up, took a deep breath, and made a decision that would change the course of human history. The Galactic Empire had made its move. Now, It was humanity's turn to respond. The world changed overnight. Streets that were once filled with the sounds of daily life now echoed with urgent preparations. The threat of the Galactic Empire loomed over every conversation, every decision, every moment. In Washington, D.C., world leaders gathered for an emergency summit. The grand meeting room buzzed with tense voices speaking dozens of languages. Old enemies sat side by side, united by a common threat greater than any they had faced before. President Elena Martinez of the United States stood at the podium, her face etched with determination. "We face an enemy that threatens not just one nation, but all of humanity," she declared. "Today, we must put aside our differences and stand together." To everyone's surprise, it was the Chinese president, Lai Wei, who stood up first. "China stands with you," he said firmly. "Our scientists, our soldiers, our resources, all are at the disposal of this global effort." One by one, other leaders followed suit. Russia, India, the European Union, Brazil. Countries that had been at odds for decades now pledged their full support. Even North Korea, long isolated from the world, offered its assistance. As the summit concluded, a new organization was born, the Earth Defense Alliance, EDA. Its mission was clear: to protect Earth and ensure the survival of the human race. Meanwhile, in London, Emily Taylor couldn't shake the feeling that she could help. She had spent years reading about alien invasions in science fiction books. Now, faced with a real one, she felt a strange sense of preparedness. Emily made her way to the nearest military recruitment center. The line stretched around the block, filled with people eager to do their part. When she finally reached the front, she found herself face to face with a tired-looking sergeant. "Name?" he asked, not looking up from his computer. "Emily Taylor," she replied. "I'm here to volunteer, but not as a soldier. I think I have an idea that could help." The sergeant looked up, skepticism clear in his eyes. "And what makes you think your idea is worth our time, Miss Taylor?" Emily took a deep breath. "Because I've spent years studying how humans defeat aliens in fiction. And sometimes, fiction has a way of becoming reality." To her surprise, instead of dismissing her, the sergeant picked up his phone. "Sir," he said into the receiver, "I think we got someone you need to meet." Across the globe, similar scenes played out. In a small village in Nigeria, a young boy who had built his own radio from scrap parts was rushed to a government facility. In Tokyo, a group of anime artists who had designed futuristic weapons for their shows were now consulting with military engineers. The Earth Defense Alliance was gathering not just soldiers and scientists, but dreamers and innovators from every walk of life. At NASA's Johnson Space Center, astronauts trained alongside fighter pilots, preparing for battles that might take place in the void of space. Engineers worked around the clock, retrofitting the International Space Station into humanity's first orbital defense platform. In the depths of CERN's particle accelerator, physicists pushed the boundaries of science, seeking weaknesses in the fabric of space-time that could be used against the alien threat. Tech companies redirected their vast resources. Social media platforms became coordination tools for global defense efforts. Smartphone manufacturers retooled their production lines to create advanced communication devices for the military. Even Hollywood pitched in, with special effects artists using their skills to create simulations of potential alien attacks, helping military strategists prepare for the unknown. As the days passed, the initial panic began to transform into a grim determination. Humanity, for perhaps the first time in its turbulent history, was truly united. In her small London apartment, Emily packed a bag. She had been summoned to a top-secret facility. As she zipped up her suitcase, her eyes fell on her bookshelf, filled with dog-eared science fiction novels. She smiled slightly, picking up her favorite and tucking it into her bag. Who knew? The key to humanity's survival might be hidden in those well-worn pages. As Emily stepped out of her apartment, she looked up at the sky. Somewhere up there, the Galactic Empire was watching, waiting, But they had underestimated humanity. They didn't know about the strength that humans found when they stood together. They didn't know about the power of human imagination and determination. The Galactic Empire had made their move. Now, united as one, humanity was ready to make theirs. Emily Taylor stepped off the helicopter, her hair whipping around her face in the wind. She found herself on a remote island, surrounded by the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean. Before her stood a massive futuristic complex, the secret headquarters of the Earth Defense Alliance. A stern-looking woman in a crisp military uniform approached her. "Miss Taylor, I'm General Maria Rodriguez. Welcome to Project Prometheus." Emily followed the general into the facility, her eyes wide as she took in the bustling activity around her. Scientists in lab coats hurried past, their arms full of strange equipment. Soldiers trained with weapons that looked like they belonged in science fiction movies. "So, Miss Taylor," General Rodriguez said as they walked, "I hear you have an idea that might save humanity. Care to share?" Emily took a deep breath. This was her moment. "It's about communication," she began. "In all the alien invasion stories I've read, we always assume the aliens are out to destroy us. But what if we're misunderstanding their message? What if there's a way to communicate that we haven't thought of yet?" The general raised an eyebrow. "Go on." "I think we need to look at how animals communicate on Earth. Whales use low-frequency sounds that travel for miles underwater. Bees dance to share information. What if the Galactic Empire is using a method we haven't even considered?" To Emily's surprise, the general didn't laugh. Instead, she nodded thoughtfully. "Interesting. Very interesting indeed. Come with me." Meanwhile, in a lab deep within the facility, Dr. Aisha Patel was having a frustrating day. As one of the world's leading experts in xenobiology, the study of potential alien life, she had been tasked with finding weaknesses in the Galactic Empire's biology. The problem was, they had no idea what that biology might be. "It's impossible," she exclaimed, throwing her hands up in exasperation. "How am I supposed to find a weakness in an enemy we know nothing about?" Just then, her assistant burst into the lab. "Dr. Patel, you need to see this." On the main screen, a video began to play. It showed strange, shimmering patterns in the atmosphere around Earth. Patterns that hadn't been there before the alien message arrived. Dr. Patel's eyes widened. "It can't be. They'd been communicating right in front of us this whole time." Across the facility, in a high-tech war room, military leaders from around the world were arguing over strategy. Holographic displays showed potential defense scenarios, each ending in devastating losses for Earth. "We need more time," shouted the Chinese general. "Our weapons are no match for their technology." "Time is the one thing we don't have," replied the American admiral grimly. Suddenly, the door burst open. General Rodriguez strode in, Emily close behind her. "Gentlemen, ladies, I think we've been looking at this all wrong. Miss Taylor here has a theory that might change everything." All eyes turned to Emily. She felt her heart pounding, but she took a deep breath and began to explain her idea. As Emily spoke, Dr. Patel's discovery was brought into the room. The two theories began to merge, forming a new understanding of the alien threat. Hours passed as the brightest minds on Earth worked to decipher the atmospheric patterns. Emily found herself working alongside Nobel laureates and four-star generals, her knowledge of science fiction proving invaluable in thinking outside the box. As dawn broke over the island, a breakthrough came. Dr. Patel burst into the war room, her eyes shining with excitement. "We've done it. We've decrypted their primary communication method." The room erupted in cheers. But the celebration was short-lived. As they began to truly understand the alien messages, a chill fell over the room. This can't be right," Emily said, her voice shaking. General Rodriguez leaned in, her face grim. "What is it? What have you found?" Emily looked up, her face pale. "The Galactic Empire. They're not invading. They're running. And whatever they're running from, it's coming here next." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The Galactic Empire, with all its advanced technology and power, was fleeing from something even worse, and Earth was caught in the middle. As the sun rose over the Pacific, casting a golden glow over the island, the leaders of Earth realized that the game had changed entirely. The question was no longer how to defeat the Galactic Empire, but how to survive what came after. And at the center of it all stood Emily Taylor, the unlikely hero who had changed everything. The ordinary librarian who now held the fate of two civilizations in her hands. The revelation that the Galactic Empire was fleeing from an even greater threat sent shockwaves through Project Prometheus. The war room, once filled with battle plans against the aliens, now buzzed with frantic discussions about this new, unknown enemy. Emily Taylor found herself at the center of it all. Her unique perspective, combining science fiction knowledge with the hard data they now possessed, made her an invaluable asset. She sat at a large round table, surrounded by military leaders, scientists, and politicians from around the world. "If the Galactic Empire is running," Emily said, her voice steady despite her nerves, "we need to find out why. And fast." Dr. Aisha Patel nodded in agreement. "I've been analyzing the atmospheric communications. There are references to something they call the void. Whatever it is, it terrifies them." General Rodriguez slammed her fist on the table. "Terrified or not, they're still a threat to Earth. We need to prepare for both the Empire and this void." As the debate raged on, action plans began to take shape. The Earth Defense Alliance would split its focus. One team would work on communicating with the Galactic Empire, while another would prepare Earth's defenses for any scenario. Outside the war room, the world continued to transform. Cities became fortresses, with anti-aircraft guns mounted on skyscrapers and energy shields shimmering over major population centers. The technology, reverse-engineered from scraps of alien tech found in old crash sites, was crude but functional. In orbit, the International Space Station had become a military outpost. Astronauts worked alongside soldiers, installing weapon systems designed to take down alien ships. They looked down at the blue marble of Earth, acutely aware that they were now the first line of defense. Deep underground, in bunkers carved into the bedrock of every continent, civilians trained for the worst-case scenario. They learned how to use emergency shelters, ration food, and even basic combat skills. The human race was preparing for a fight for survival. Back at Project Prometheus, Emily found herself working closely with Dr. Patel. They pored over the alien communications, searching for any clue about the void. "Look at this pattern," Emily said, pointing to a recurring sequence in the data. "It reminds me of how black holes are described in some sci-fi novels. A force that consumes everything, even light." Dr. Patel's eyes widened. "That's actually not far from some theoretical physics concepts. If the void is something like that, on a galactic scale." She trailed off, the implications too horrifying to voice. As they worked, news came in from around the world. A team in Japan had developed energy weapons capable of damaging alien materials. Brazilian scientists had created a global early warning system using repurposed weather satellites. In Africa, a coalition of nations had built a massive underground city capable of housing millions. Humanity was uniting and innovating at an unprecedented pace. But would it be enough? In low Earth orbit, the first of Earth's new defense satellites took position. It was a crude thing, a mass of steel and circuitry, but it represented humanity's first step towards becoming a spacefaring civilization. As the satellite settled into its orbit, its sensors picked up something alarming. A massive object, far larger than any known asteroid, was approaching the solar system at incredible speed. The news reached Project Prometheus within minutes. Alarms blared throughout the facility. Emily and Dr. Patel rushed to the war room, joining the others as they gathered around the main display. "Is it the Empire?" someone asked, voice shaking. General Rodriguez shook her head grimly. "No, the object's too large. This is something else. As they watched, more data poured in. The object was changing course, adjusting its trajectory towards Earth with impossible precision. This was no natural phenomenon. It was a ship, and it was headed straight for them. Emily felt a chill run down her spine. "I think," she said slowly, "we're about to meet the void." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The Galactic Empire's warning had come too late. The threat they fled was already here. General Rodriguez straightened her uniform, her face set with determination. "Well then," she said, her voice cutting through the tension, "let's show them what humanity is made of." As klaxons sounded throughout the facility, as governments around the world went into emergency mode, as civilians rushed to shelters and soldiers manned their posts, humanity prepared to face its greatest challenge. The void was coming, and Earth would be ready. The battle for survival was about to begin. The skies above Earth crackled with energy as the massive ship of the void entered the atmosphere. Despite humanity's best preparations, nothing could have truly readied them for this moment. The ship was beyond enormous. It blotted out the sun over entire continents, casting the world into an eerie twilight. At Project Prometheus, Emily Taylor stood beside General Rodriguez, Dr. Patel, and other world leaders as they watched the events unfold on giant screens. The tension in the room was palpable. "All defense systems are online," a technician reported. "Energy shields are at maximum capacity." General Rodriguez nodded grimly. "Let's hope it's enough." As the ship descended, smaller craft began to emerge from its hull. They looked like drops of oil, sleek and black, defying all known laws of aerodynamics as they moved through the air. "They're heading for major cities," Dr. Patel observed, her voice tense. Emily's mind raced. "Wait," she said suddenly. "Look at their formation. It's not random. It's a pattern." Dr. Patel's eyes widened as she saw it too. "You're right. It's similar to the atmospheric communications we decoded from the Galactic Empire." Before they could analyze further, the first reports of attacks came in. The void ships fired strange, pulsating beams that seemed to absorb everything they touched. Buildings, vehicles, even people, all vanished into nothingness. Around the world, humanity's defenses sprang into action. Energy shields flickered as they repelled the strange weapons, but it was clear they wouldn't hold for long. Fighter jets scrambled, engaging the alien craft in desperate aerial battles. In New York, the Statue of Liberty stood defiant as void ships swarmed around it. Its newly installed energy weapons fired, taking down several alien craft before a stray beam caught it, erasing Lady Liberty from existence. In Beijing, the Great Wall became a line of defense, its length dotted with hastily installed weapon systems. They managed to create a barrier that the void ships couldn't easily penetrate, buying precious time for evacuations. Back at Project Prometheus, Emily had a realization. "The pattern," she said urgently. "It's not just a formation. I think it's a message." Dr. Patel quickly ran the data through their decryption algorithms. As the results came in, her face paled. "Oh no," she whispered. "What is it?" General Rodriguez demanded. "It's not just an attack," Dr. Patel explained. "They're harvesting, consuming. Everything they touch is being converted into energy and absorbed." The implications were horrifying. The void wasn't here to conquer. It was here to consume the entire planet. As this realization sank in, a new alert blared through the facility. The main void ship was descending directly towards their location. "They found us," General Rodriguez said grimly. "Evacuate the facility. Now." As alarms sounded and people rushed to escape, Emily stood rooted to the spot, her eyes fixed on the screens. Something about the void ship's movements nagged at her. "Wait," she said, her voice barely audible over the chaos. Then louder, "Wait. Look at the ship." The room fell silent as all eyes turned to the main screen. The massive void ship had stopped its descent and was now waiting. "They're not attacking us," Emily said slowly. They're giving us a chance. Dr. Patel's fingers flew over her keyboard. She's right. I'm detecting a new signal. It's an invitation for communication. General Rodriguez looked skeptical. It could be a trap. Or it could be our only chance, Emily countered. She turned to face the room, her voice steady despite the fear she felt. I volunteer to go, to try and communicate with them. The room erupted in protests, but Emily stood firm. I'm the one who first recognized their patterns. I have the best chance of understanding them. After a tense debate, it was decided. Emily would be sent to the void ship, along with Dr. Patel and a small military escort. As they prepared to leave, General Rodriguez pulled Emily aside. You know this is probably a one-way trip, right? Emily nodded, her face pale but determined. I know, but if there's even a small chance of saving Earth, I have to try. As Emily boarded the shuttle that would take her to the void ship, she looked back at the Earth, beautiful, blue, and in grave danger. Whatever awaited her aboard that alien vessel, she knew that the fate of humanity now rested on her shoulders. The shuttle's engines ignited, and Emily Taylor, the unlikely hero, began her journey into the heart of the void. The shuttle carrying Emily, Dr. Patel, and their military escort approached the massive void ship. Up close, its surface seemed to swallow light, creating an unsettling visual effect that made Emily's eyes water. Look, Dr. Patel whispered, pointing at a section of the ship. A portal was opening, revealing a cavernous docking bay. As they landed, Emily's heart raced. This was it, the moment that would determine the fate of humanity. The team stepped out of the shuttle, their footsteps echoing in the vast, empty space. The air felt thick and heavy, as if the very atmosphere was alien. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was humanoid in shape, but its body seemed to shift and change, like smoke given form. Emily stepped forward, her voice surprisingly steady. We come in peace. We wish to communicate. The being tilted its head, studying them. Then, to everyone's shock, it spoke in perfect English. We know. We have been watching, listening, learning. Dr. Patel gasped. You can understand us. We understand all, the being replied. We are the void. We consume to understand, to grow, to become. Emily's mind raced, connecting dots from all the sci-fi stories she had read. You're not just consuming, she said slowly. You're assimilating, taking in information, experiences, entire civilizations. The being's form rippled, as if pleased. Yes, you understand. That is why we called you here. You are different. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the situation was growing dire. The void ships continued their assault, and humanity's defenses were crumbling. At Project Prometheus, General Rodriguez watched the global map with growing despair. Cities were falling, marked by expanding black dots on the screen. We need a miracle, she muttered. As if in answer, a young technician called out, General, we're detecting a massive energy surge from the Galactic Empire fleet. On the screens, they watched in awe as the Empire ships, which had been hovering at the edge of the solar system, suddenly sprang to life. They zoomed towards Earth, engaging the Void ships in a spectacular space battle. Back on the Void mothership, Emily and her team felt the vessel shudder from the impacts of the Empire's attack. The Void being's form flickered. The Empire seeks to stop us. They do not understand. We must consume to survive. Emily saw her chance. But what if there was another way? What if you could gain knowledge without destruction? The being paused, intrigued. Explain. Emily took a deep breath. Humanity. We create. We imagine. We have countless stories, ideas, dreams. What if we shared those with you voluntarily? You could gain so much without having to destroy. Dr. Patel caught on quickly. Yes. Our art, our literature, our science fiction. It's all imagination, creativity. Things you can't get just by consuming physical matter. The void being's form swirled rapidly, processing this new idea. "Show us," it demanded. Emily pulled out her e-reader, which she had brought on a whim. She began to read aloud from her favorite sci-fi novel, her voice carrying through the cavernous ship. As she read, something incredible happened. The void being's form began to change, taking on colors and shapes inspired by the story. Other void beings appeared, drawn by the narrative. In space, the battle between the Empire and the Void suddenly paused. The Void ships stopped their attack, hanging motionless in the sky. General Rodriguez watched in disbelief as the black dots on her map stopped expanding. "What's happening?" she wondered aloud. Back on the Void ship, Emily finished the story. The beings around her pulsed with new energy, new ideas. The first being spoke again, its voice filled with wonder. "This creation, this imagination, it is more than we have ever consumed. We want more." Emily smiled, tears in her eyes. "And we'll share it all with you. Every story, every idea, as long as you promise to stop the destruction." The being's form solidified slightly, taking on a more definite shape. "Agreed. We will learn. We will create. With you." As this agreement was made, the void ships around Earth began to retreat. The Galactic Empire, seeing this, halted their attack as well. Emily looked out a viewport at the Earth, blue and beautiful below. She had done it. With nothing but stories and imagination, she had saved humanity and possibly changed the course of the entire galaxy. As the team prepared to return to Earth, Emily knew that this was just the beginning. Humanity was about to embark on its greatest adventure yet, teaching the void how to create, imagine, and dream. The return to Earth was nothing short of triumphant. As Emily's shuttle descended through the atmosphere, she could see crowds gathering in cities around the world, people pouring out of shelters and looking up at the sky with hope instead of fear. Project Prometheus buzzed with excitement as Emily, Dr. Patel, and their team stepped off the shuttle. General Rodriguez was there to greet them, her usually stern face breaking into a rare smile. "You did it, Taylor," she said, clasping Emily's hand. "You saved us all." Emily blushed, still processing the enormity of what had happened. "It wasn't just me," she insisted. "It was all of us. Our stories, our imagination. That's what saved us." Over the next few weeks, the world watched in awe as the void ships transformed. No longer dark and menacing, they now shimmered with colors and patterns, reflecting the stories and ideas they were absorbing from humanity. The Galactic Empire, initially wary, began to engage in peaceful communications with Earth and the void. Millennia of conflict were giving way to a new era of understanding and cooperation. At a global conference broadcast to every corner of the Earth, representatives from humanity, the void, and the Galactic Empire gathered to formalize their new alliance. Emily, now a key figure in interstellar diplomacy, took the stage. She looked out at the diverse audience, humans of all nations, shimmering void beings, and the regal representatives of the Galactic Empire. "A month ago," she began, her voice carrying across the hushed crowd, "we faced extinction. Today, we stand at the dawn of a new age, an age of creation, of sharing, of boundless imagination." She gestured to the void beings. "Our new friends have shown us the power of consumption, of taking in knowledge. We've shown them the power of creation, of making something from nothing but dreams." The void representative stepped forward, its form a swirl of vibrant colors. "We have existed for eons," it said, its voice resonating strangely. "But only now, through humanity, have we learned to truly live, to create, to dream." The Galactic Empire's ambassador, a tall, elegant being, spoke next. "For too long, we ran in fear. We sought to conquer to protect ourselves. Now we see a new path, a path of cooperation and shared knowledge." As the conference concluded, a historic treaty was signed. Earth would share its culture, its stories, its boundless creativity with the galaxy. In return, they would receive protection, advanced technology, and access to the stars. Humanity had not just survived, it had become a linchpin in a new galactic order. Months passed, and the changes on Earth were astounding. Void technology, tempered by human creativity, transformed cities. Clean energy, advanced medicine, and faster-than-light travel became realities. The first human colony ships, guided by void navigators and protected by Empire fleets, set out to explore distant stars. Earth's imagination was spreading across the galaxy, seeding new worlds with stories and dreams. One evening, Emily stood on the balcony of the new Global Space Agency headquarters, looking up at the stars. Dr. Patel joined her, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Penny for your thoughts?" Dr. Patel asked, handing Emily a cup. Emily smiled, taking the sip. "I was just thinking about all those sci-fi books I used to read, how they always ended with humanity triumphant, spreading across the stars." Dr. Patel chuckled. "And now we're living it, thanks to you." Emily shook her head. "Thanks to all of us. Our stories, our ability to imagine and create, that's humanity's real superpower." As they stood there, a shimmering void ship passed overhead, its surface reflecting the city lights like a disco ball. In the distance, the sleek silhouette of an Empire cruiser patrolled peacefully. "So," Dr. Patel said with a grin, "what's next for the hero of Earth?" Emily laughed. "Oh, I'm no hero. I'm just a librarian who reads too much sci-fi." She paused, looking back up at the stars. "But I do have some ideas for our next adventure." As night fell over a peaceful Earth, Emily Taylor, the unlikely hero who had saved humanity with nothing but stories, began to plan the next chapter in humanity's greatest adventure. The stars were calling, and thanks to the power of human imagination, the entire galaxy was listening. The end, or perhaps just the beginning.